Good evening. My name is Stephen McCallister, and today we're going to be talking about data at rest, in use, and in transmission. But first, let's go over encryption and why that's important. With data growing in volume and scope, companies need to know the best encryption methods for the three stages of data to keep that information secure. Data encryption is the process of converting information into a secret code and/or cipher to hide its meaning. Using a specialized encryption algorithm, companies can encode their data so it becomes indecipherable to anyone but the intended recipient, who relies on another encryption algorithm on their end to decode the information. Now let's move on to data at rest. Data at rest refers to inactive data, meaning it is not moving between devices and/or networks. Because this information tends to be stored or archived, it's less vulnerable than data in transit. That being said, any information companies keep close to their chest is also seen as more valuable by hackers, making it a target for external attacks. Data at rest might include information archived in a database or in any data stored on a hard drive, computer, or personal device. Let's discuss data in use. Data is in use when it is accessed or consumed by an employee or corporate application. Whether it's being read, processed, or modified, data is at its most vulnerable in this state because it's directly accessible to an individual, making it susceptible to attack or human error, both of which can have significant consequences. Encryption is essential to protecting data in use, and many businesses will shore up their encryption solutions with additional security measures like authentication and permissions for data access. Lastly, let's move on to data in transit. As the name implies, data in transit is any kind of data that is moving from one location to another. This includes information traveling via email, collaboration platforms like Microsoft Teams, instant messengers like WhatsApp, and virtually any public communications channel. This data is generally less secure than inactive data given its exposure across the internet and/or private corporate networks as it travels from one place to another. This makes data in transit a prime target for attack. Now let's discuss strategies on how to properly secure data. First, always back up everything that you're doing, whether it's personal or at work. If anything were to happen, you always want to have a safe backup at hand. Secondly, make sure you use strong passwords. Don't use anything that is weak. I recommend anything 10 characters or more, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, and numbers. Try not to make anything repeating or anything personally identifiable like birth dates, names, street addresses, anything like that. And also, do not use the same password for multiple applications because if a hacker gets one password, now they've got them all. Take care when working remotely. Make sure you know your surroundings. Someone could be watching over your shoulder and watching everything that you're doing. So you don't want someone noticing a password that you're typing, say if you're at an airport and or a coffee shop. Always be aware of suspicious emails. Social engineering is at an all-time high, and emails and email addresses are being spoofed and made to look like, say, Verizon, USAA, what have you. And if you input the information, it could either install malicious software, keystroke logger, something of that nature, and or it could put viruses onto your computer, or generally you just send your information straight to the hackers. So we don't want to do that. Make sure your antivirus or malware protection is installed and or updated. I personally use Malwarebytes and Bitdefender. There's also McAfee, Norton, AVG, the list goes on and on. Don't leave paperwork or laptops unattended. Let's say you're working on something, you get up to go get a drink. Somebody now has access to your computer. If you didn't lock it, they could take your computer. They could stick a thumb drive in real quick and install something. You don't know. I don't know. The best policy is do not take your eyes off of your laptop, and or if you've got sensitive documents, make sure you take them with you. And lastly, make sure your Wi-Fi is secured. If you're at home, make sure you change your SSID to something that no one else knows. Also, make sure you change your password with the recommendations that I gave you earlier. If you do all of these things, you will secure your data and you will greatly reduce the chances of your information from being hacked. From the research that I've done, really the strategies don't change when we discuss data in use, at rest, and in transit. The best thing you can do is make sure everything that's classified and or sensitive is encrypted. If you're working on a work computer, make sure that computer is encrypted if you're not on the company network. Also, if you guys are working with any kind of documentation, make sure it is secured at all times. Typically, like I mentioned earlier, data at rest is less vulnerable. Data in use and in transit are going to be the ones that hackers primarily want to get, and they have the greater chance of achieving that goal because the information is freely moving. Depending on what levels of encryption you have, or if encryption's even evolved at all, will dictate whether they get that information or not. So please be wary, look around, know your surroundings, and always keep your head on a swivel. In summary, we discussed the differences in data at rest, in use, and in transmission. We talked about how data should be secured. We also talked about the strategies that change when data is in use, at rest, or in transit. Again, my name is Stephen McCallister. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much and have a great day.